Welcome back to the polls. This afternoon, there's a major threat to Ghana's food security as local crop production faces a double hurdle of imminent fertilizer shortage and predictions of prolonged drought. Government has revealed it may not be able to meet even half of the budgeted fertilizer for this year. This revelation comes just days after peasant farmers threatened to move away from the production of grains and cereals following the 15% slash of subsidy for fertilizer by government. Speaking on the business edition of PM Express on the Joy News channel, Deputy Minister for Agriculture Frimpong Ado said the Russian-Ukrainian war is partly to blame.
Those two countries together, I think, account for over 60% of the world supply of chemical fertilizer. And chemical fertilizer is in short supply all around the world. We started not today from the era of the COVID, the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. So the war broke, yes. Before the outbreak of this war, we realized that the cost of fertilizers were going up before the outbreak.
How bad is the situation?
At the moment, it's very bad because what we budgeted for fertilizer supplies for this year in the 2022 budget, I can tell you that the amount that we require, we may not be able to supply even half of it because of the price differentials. We are doing some serious consideration of a whole lot of things.
Meanwhile, the Meteorological Agency is predicting a slightly longer dry weather period for the 2022 farming season. Now, a late onset of rains and mostly normal cessations are actually expected for Ghanaian farmers. The forecast actually raises a red flag. So what can actually be done to mitigate the impact of this adverse weather condition? Here is the Deputy Director for Research and Applied Meteorology at the Ghana Meteorological Service, Francisca Marte.
We expect a longer dry spell and then normal to late vegetation. It means that we can get dry places at the coast because we're expecting below normal to normal cumulative rainfall. So we can get dry places at the coast, but the middle belt, we are expecting normal values. But the problem will be if we are having breaks within the rainfall that are longer than normal. If we have longer spells, it means that we are going to have a bit of a challenge because our crops will need consistent equal rainfall amounts. If it rains today and then there's a long break and then rains again, the crops don't need that. We should use more of irrigation, and then the dams around us, we should use them to start before the rains setting. Otherwise, then it's going to push our cropping season a bit late, and that will not augur well for us.
Well, so let's have a conversation on this matter. Obviously, there's a need for us to consider the factors that we need to work on to address this imminent food shortage. Dr. Charles Nyaaba is the Executive Director for the Peasant Farmers Association, joining us now in studio. It's good to see you, Doc. Join us on a Friday. We know that you have quite a lot on your hands, but we're grateful that you're joining us. So paint the picture for us. Where are we in terms of our food security status as a country?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by maybe congratulating the Deputy Agric Minister for his admission that the situation on the field is not that good. Because this then gives us space to plan as to how to address it. But if consistently we keep trying to paint a picture that all is well, when in reality the situation is no good, it's a bit problematic. So as we stand, our food security situation related to cereals and legumes on the field is not that good. If you take a commodity like maize, which is a #1 food staple, almost every household consumes at least maize or maize-related product once a week. You go to major maize producing areas, and as we speak, there is shortage. Apart from the prices being very, very high, beyond the affordability of ordinary consumer, the product is not even there. You take sorghum, which poultry industry and then Nestle and other food processing companies are relying on. It's not there. Prices are so high. You take sorghum, of which produce a processing company like Guinness Ghana are dependent on. There is serious shortage. So that's where we are now. Now, our fear is not even what we are facing now. Because if you look at last year, at least the rains were a bit stable.
Right.
There was fertilizer. The problem we faced was shortage and then the price. But even with last year prices, this year, with government subsidy, it's about 200% increase. And apart from that, the ministry admitted that even what is allocated for the subsidy, we might not get it. So that suggests that it has serious implications on cost of production. And usually farmers are rational beings. So when they see their cost of production is high and their profit margins likely to be zero, they will either change to other enterprises
or they may not even produce
or reduce their farm sizes or produce without applying fertilizer.
And this may worsen the situation. Correct me if I'm wrong, because as a nation, we are heavily reliant on importing, for instance, rice, which is another staple as well. So if maize is not complementing the intake, that would be a big challenge for us as a nation.
We depend on 65% importation of rice. The local production is 35%.
Right.
So, and issues of fertilizer-related issues, fuel, mechanization, pesticides, insecticides. Commodities like rice and maize depend so much on availability of these commodities to be able to produce and yield well. So if prices of these commodities are so high, in some occasions, even not available, it means that it will definitely affect productivity.
The Agric Minister, and we've heard the Agric Minister speak on a number of occasions, he said that the country is secure. I mean, in terms of food security, we've heard him countless times. In recent days, not less than a week ago, he's been on a number of platforms reiterating the same position. Is the minister right in making such projections for the nation?
Yeah, so I think maybe that is the information he got, or that is his personal feeling. I don't want to 100% dispute what he said, because I don't know his source of information, because he failed to actually reveal the source of data he's using to explain to all of us. But as a practitioner who has been dealing with the farmers day in and out, I've spoken to farmers from all these food growing areas, from Wenchi, Techima, Nkranza, Kintampo, go to Northern Pai, Gusiegu, Karga, Northern Tamale itself, go to Upper East, you talk of Fumbisi, Yarba, Glimblisi, you go to Western region, Tumu, we depend so much on maize. All these areas, farmers are lamenting, consumers are lamenting, the markets are almost empty. There's nothing there. Now, I also heard this afternoon that government said they are managing what we have. That is what surprises me, because I'm not aware of any food stock that government stored somewhere to be released during the lean season. Yeah, government said they are managing what they have. So I don't really know whether we are talking about what is to be imported or what we are managing. So to me, the situation is not good. And I think that all of us need to come together and reason with the farmers, because we have some plans in place to see how best we'll be able to actually improve a bit in going forward.
But what should we be on the lookout for? Because Ghanaians out there are wondering, are we moving into a state where there'll be no food for us?
No, so
is that the case?
Now let me make this distinction.
Yes, very clear, so we understand what's happening.
You see, even though we are talking about food shortages, our predictions are based on cereals and legumes. And these commodities depend so much on the use of agrochemicals and fertilizer. But when you take commodities like tubers, roots like cassava, others like plantain and what have you, those commodities do not actually depend so much on fertilizer. So our suggestion is that all of us should actually change our taste to begin eating more of tuber, cassava-related commodities. If you do that, then the pressure on maize and rice would have gone down.
Well, changing taste and what it is that is of one's preference, it will take some time to happen.
Yeah.
So that's why, in the meantime, there are a lot of people on the lookout for what policy measures would best address the challenge that we're facing.
In the very short run, you know, there was a release by the Minister of Finance that all ministries and departments should cut their budget by 20%.
Okay.
We are suggesting that Ministry of Food and Agriculture should be excluded. Now, even though government is facing difficulties, when UTAC members stayed in the house for more than 1 month, government found money to top up for them to go back to the classroom. We are talking about food security. So we are suggesting that no matter how hard it is for government, they should find money and subsidize inputs for farmers. For us, we are doing our best. We have started sensitizing our members to go into using organic manure, using compost, and try to adopt agroecology farming practices. These kind of practices, we do not rely so much on external input.
And I get the point you're making, because what we're likely to see is that if government goes through with the implementation of this 25% cut in all government expenditure, it will therefore mean that their Greek ministry would have to cut down by some 25% how much they give in subsidies for fertilizer. And so you want that restored in full, or what percentage are you looking
That should be restored. And additional budget allocation should be located to Ministry of Food and Agriculture. The taking of fertilizer subsidy is no-go area. Even the current reduction to 15%, we don't support it. And we are planning to see whether we can engage Ministry of Finance and justify to him the reason why we think the 15% is not enough. Look, and we are doing this not just for the farmer. We are doing this for you and your family. We are doing this for the ordinary consumer. So when we talk, all of us need to actually add our voice. Because when the farmer produces, how much can that farmer consume? I still have enough maize in my warehouse. I cannot finish consuming it with my family. I have to bring it to the market for others to buy. But if the commodity is not there, where will you get it to buy? And it's simple demand and supply theory. When demand is higher than supply, prices will go high. In our case, the supply is not even there. So what we need to do is all of us to find ways of putting more resources in the hands of the farmer. If the farmer is able to make some small margin, the rest of the produce is going to the consumer.
And I guess the idea about subsidizing fertilizer has been the point about stimulating the agro industry. Why don't we look at other measures? The argument has been that the subsidies on fertilizer has not been utilized well by the farmers. There are still cases of what do you call it? People taking the fertilizer into smuggling them into neighboring countries, and we've seen other activities go on, which is obviously not a judicious use of government subsidies. So why not channel that fund or the monies that we're getting into other areas within the same sector?
Yeah, so it's all planning and taking inputs of stakeholders. But as we stand, a very short measure is not that alternative, because the season is starting next month or two for Northern Ghana. The Southern Ghana, we've already started. And that's why we are saying that the alternative is agroecology, and then producing our own compost. But we cannot do that at this moment. So what we need to do is the money that we put there for the farmers to produce in this moment for us for this year and next year. Then as we are going into the next budgeting season, government will now plan and put in place how we'll be able to set up agro-based industries that will produce some of these inputs in country. Because we cannot continue to depend on the West. Because Ukraine-Russia conflict shouldn't have anything to do with Africa, and for that matter, Ghana. Because all our soils are rich. We can produce all what we want.
You feel that excuse is not tenable? Government saying, well, partly of
that's what I'm saying. It's lack of planning. That's why it's affecting us.
You're challenging that fact?
Yes. The point I'm making is that if government had planned well, then we shouldn't even be afraid if Ukraine and Russia are having fight, because we equally have fertile soils that we can produce for consumption and for export. But because we've not planned properly and we continue to depend on the West, any slightest change in their economy affecting us. And that's why when COVID set in, we have been struggling to produce common commodities that we could have done in country. That's our point.
Are we likely to see any engagement between your association and government to address this imminent crisis?
Yes, of course. Not only our association, all the actors in the agriculture sector, the CSOs, You talk of General Agriculture Workers Union, Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, Food Sovereignty Ghana, Rice Millers Association, all of them. We have started talking amongst ourselves. And our doors are open. We will soon be contacting not only the Ministry of Food and Agri, but the Ministry of Finance as well. Because we think...
You want to meet the finance minister?
Of course, because we think that there's no more time for us to sit and wait for these politics and then long talk. We need to let them understand that the situation is no good, and we all need to come together and see how best we'll be able to contribute our inputs to transform the sector.
How soon are we seeing that?
We are planning, and then hopefully, if they open their doors for us, at least next week should be fine with us. Yeah.
Doc, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on The Pulse.